This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. It's been a bitter cold day to start the week. The deep freeze is challenging for people from all walks of life, but these bitter cold temperatures are especially tough for people who are homeless. CBC's Josh Crabb reports.
On a day when the temperature dipped below -30, the most vulnerable Manitobans looked for somewhere safe and warm. Ron Avery spends days like this visiting shelters and organizations offering a hot meal.
Sometimes you have to go warm up with 5-10 minutes where you can get warming and find out where you're going so you're not stuck outside too long.
The demand to escape the cold has homeless shelters bursting at the seams. Nadinawaymak Executive Director Frank Park says all 220 spaces at the Indigenous-led warming shelter are full.
If anybody can handle this weather, it is our relatives, but even then you reach a point where it's really, really cold. So we've been at capacity all night, all morning.
The Downtown Community Safety Partnership has been responding to calls to help people in need. Patrol teams have been visiting encampments and other areas downtown to find people struggling in the extreme cold.
They're going to be offering safe rides and voluntary transports to any of the emergency shelters that are currently operating, making sure people are properly dressed.
At Lighthouse Mission, parkas, toques, and other clothes are offered up for free. That's in addition to coffee and warm lunches served to people who brave the elements to get something to eat. Executive Director Peter McMullen says usually there are lineups, but not in this cold.
So they're literally staying in the shelters till the last minute, and a lot of the folks are just waiting till we're actually open before they come over. They just don't want to wait.
Calls for help from people whose vehicles won't start have spiked. CAA Manitoba had around 1,000 calls for service near noon. Most of those are battery-related issues.
Extreme cold weather does not get along with vehicles. It does really wreak havoc on our car batteries.
Avery does his errands on foot and makes sure to keep himself warm.
So it starts getting dark, that's when it gets colder. And you want to get off the street before it gets too cold.
A challenge for both those seeking shelter and those trying to provide it. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Weather specialist Riley Lachuk in now. And Riley, it is, like we said, bitter cold, a day to stay inside, have some warm soup, something to keep you as warm on the inside as possible.
Exactly. Let's start with where we started this morning. So look at some of these temperatures back to the west, -36 in Dauphin and Roblin. Carberry getting down to -39. That was our morning low, our cold spot this morning in Manitoba. Winnipeg -32.7 this morning and close to that -40 mark into northwestern Ontario as well. This afternoon really not going anywhere. -28 in Winnipeg this afternoon, barely cracking -30 in parts of the west as well. So it's been a cold one. We have another one of these yet to come. We have this extreme cold warning still in place for much of southern Manitoba. We're looking at wind chill values -40 to -45 once again overnight, which is frostbite on exposed skin. 10 minutes or less. In the west in particular, looking at frostbite on exposed skin in 5 minutes or less tonight. And really this stretches right across Saskatchewan, Ontario, into Quebec and parts of the Maritimes. This cold is really stuck in here. -31 again tonight, Brittany. We're looking at a -30 start once again. When I come back, I'll have more on when this cold lifts.
All right. Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, Donald Trump has been inaugurated as the 47th President of the United States of America. And while Trump threatened to impose 25% tariffs on Canadian imports on his first day in office, that didn't happen. But it doesn't mean Canadians are in the clear. The CBC's Alana Cole reports.
It's what so many Canadians have been watching for. Once sworn into office, what will Donald Trump do when it comes to tariffs on Canadian imports?
Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens.
Trump says he's overhauling the trade system, that an external revenue service will collect tariffs. But reports say no tariffs on goods from Canada on day one. And according to Reuters, Trump will direct agencies to, quote, investigate and remedy persistent trade deficits, end quote. Manitoba Pork's general manager says he's relieved, but that it's not time to be complacent. Cam Dahl says the U.S. is the #1 market for Manitoba's pork industry, and people benefit on both sides of the border.
Producers on both sides of the border make a little bit more money because there aren't impediments to trade, and consumers also are able to buy a high-quality product at a lower price because there aren't impediments to trade. So I believe that will be something that's clear when we go through and have a comprehensive look at our trading relationship.
Speaking with CBC before Trump's inauguration ceremony, Terry Shaw from the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters Association said a survey of members shows the threat of tariffs already having an impact.
A lot of our members now are working on accelerating shipments, working with their customers to get product into the U.S. ahead of the tariffs. Some of our members are looking at hiring freezes. I know some have already seen some business slowdowns.
Another impact? Shaw says about half the members who responded to the survey suggest a 25% tariff would mean they would ship some of production to the U.S. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, directly south of us in North Dakota, there were more cheers than concerns at one Trump watch party. CBC national reporter Karen Pauls is in Fargo, where many were expecting to see swift action on the president's promises.
Donald Trump got the support of 65% of voters here in North Dakota, the 4th highest in the country. So people here at this watch party were excited to see him sworn in again as president.
I believe he's going to make a lot of changes based on jobs, having better opportunity.
He started with the border. That definitely needs to stop. It is an invasion. And it's not done for humanitarian reasons.
We're just so happy that today is a day, it's a revolution of common sense. That's the theme of today.
But there are concerns about tariffs and Canada's potential retaliation. North Dakota exports about 80% of all goods produced every year to Canada, mostly agriculture. And this farmer has some concerns.
The real premium comes when we export it. And so having that export in place with the trade agreements, we've had some real good revenue that keeps family farmers living on the land. But yeah, if there's retaliatory actions in place, that's where the downside is when agriculture gets caught in the middle, because usually the ones that are at risk the most is family farmers.
That sentiment, though, seems few and far between. Most people here are more concerned about TikTok than tariffs. They say the U.S. needs to stop defending and propping up other countries around the world, and that includes Canada. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Fargo, North Dakota.
A Manitoba family is rallying support from across the country for a petition to change how the public receives silver alerts. Earl Moberg's loved ones want to see information about missing vulnerable seniors pushed to cell phones. CBC's Santiago Arias spoke with his family on their last days to gather signatures.
So people don't have to go searching for this petition, it's right there.
McIver Mole holds fond memories for Brenda Moberg. She and her husband Earl used to walk here many times. He had dementia and disappeared after going out walking more than a year ago. His family has been fighting for changes to how people are notified when a senior goes missing.
This is the last big push in person.
Brenda is gathering signatures for a petition that will be tabled in Parliament. It calls on the federal government to develop a national silver alert strategy, a system that sends information on missing vulnerable adults directly to people's phones, similar to an Amber Alert.
We don't want any other seniors to go missing and a family to suffer like we have.
Silver alerts are already issued in Manitoba, but they're only shared by police and the media. Earl's daughter, Brick Mover, says that alert didn't go far enough.
We didn't have anything to share quickly right away, and so we were, in a panic and a stress about that. 13
months have passed since then. Public Safety Canada says after 12 hours of going missing, there's a 50% chance vulnerable adults are found injured or dead.
It's a very short timeline, and I don't think it's not because community members don't want to help, they do. It's just because not enough people are aware fast enough.
Push alerts on cell phones could be part of the solution.
So it's possible to, with technology, to what's called geo-target. So the alerts can only can be limited to a certain geographic area.
More than 4,500 people have signed the petition so far. But with the House of Commons prorogued until March and a non-confidence vote looming, it could be months before the proposal is officially tabled in Ottawa.
There'll be other things maybe on their agenda, but the signatures will count. They won't be lost.
The family says a new alert system won't bring Earl back, but it could help stop his story from repeating. Especially important as nearly 1 million Canadians are expected to live with dementia by 2030. Santiago Arias, CBC News, Winnipeg.
They've helped fill a void in many Manitoba industries, but with changes limiting the number of newcomers allowed in the province, filling critical job shortages is going to get more difficult. We'll have more on that straight ahead. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Manitoba's population would shrink if it wasn't for immigration. Newcomers fill the jobs the province needs. So what does it mean to Manitoba now that the federal government is cutting back on immigration? The CBC's Ian Fraze went to find out.
Stitch by stitch, a sewing factory owner and her new manager share a common thread.
I realized that this guy that's touring our factory knows as much or more than I do about flame-resistant textiles.
Lasita Patarana was managing a similar factory back home in Sri Lanka. But a year and a half ago, he wanted to immigrate to the small Manitoba city of Morden. Working for Cheryl Digby was his way in.
It all came as a God's gift. I strongly believe that.
This sewing company that makes safety apparel relies heavily on immigrants to fill jobs. But soon, that might get harder. The federal government is reducing how many immigrants it accepts dramatically. And for businesses that need their labor, that could be a problem.
Without immigrants, we wouldn't have a business.
Ottawa says it's cutting back on immigration mainly because of a housing crisis in the biggest cities. Lori Wilkinson studies immigration in Manitoba.
At a time when we need more newcomers, we're being told to cut back.
Manitoba just found out its provincial nominee program will be slashed from 9,500 slots last year to half of that this year. This immigration stream matches skilled workers with job openings. It's responsible for 70% of Manitoba's immigrants.
When we start cutting back, that means our GDP is going to decline as well. And if we look at some of the other economic threats that we're facing, like from the United States with increased tariffs, we could be heading into economic recession fairly shortly.
Manitoba's immigration minister warned in advance cutting the program would be disastrous.
You are trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist here in Manitoba, and you are creating a new one for us.
A Liberal MP previously said Manitoba's nominee program is a jewel, but the number of immigrants still needs to be controlled.
That's to the benefit of all Canadians, including people in Manitoba, obviously.
Up in Thompson, businesses worry finding workers may soon get more difficult. Already, one hotel manager sometimes cleans the rooms herself. She says it's not sustainable.
If we don't have help, close rooms and not rent them because no one will clean them.
2 other hotels cannot open their bars.
I'm not getting a proper bartenders. We tried to open few months during Christmas. It did not work out well.
That one looked crooked, right?
Yeah.
At the sewing factory in southern Manitoba, 85% of staff are immigrants. When job openings come up, Patirana says so far only newcomers have the skills.
We got Canadians applying, but they didn't have the required qualification.
He says the skills of newcomers are woven into the success of his business. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Morden.
Winnipeg has sought legal advice about how to proceed with the process of hiring its next police chief. The chair of Winnipeg's police board said in early December a candidate had been identified. Councillor Marcus Chambers later said the board was conducting more due diligence. Chambers now says external legal counsel is involved.
Included in our due diligence, we've gone out and sought independent legal advice, and we're making sure that we're acting in accordance to the policies and procedures that are set out.
Chambers said new information was brought to the board in December. He says hiring a new chief will take as long as it takes. Former chief Danny Smythe retired in September. A building in Winnipeg's North Point Douglas is set for an emergency demolition. The 2-story house on Austin Street was engulfed in flames Sunday morning. No one was injured, but the house sustained significant smoke, fire, and water damage. The building has caught fire at least once before. According to the United Firefighters of Winnipeg, the number of fires in vacant structures has risen exponentially in recent years. So far this year, at least 7 other vacant properties have caught fire in Winnipeg. 4 people are vying to become the next Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. Candidates include former York Factory First Nation Chief Leroy Constant, Sapatawaya Cree Nation Band Councillor Bava Dillon, former Peguis First Nation Chief Glenn Hudson and former Long Plain First Nation Chief Kyra Wilson. AMC chooses its next Grand Chief on January 29th. Whoever wins will replace Kathy Merrick, who passed away suddenly in September. A 30-year-old woman from Winnipeg is dead after a multi-vehicle pileup on Fermor Avenue during Friday's blizzard. RCMP believe the woman was hit by another vehicle after she got out of hers. No other serious injuries were reported. Near zero visibility led to multiple road closures throughout the day, including the Trans-Canada Highway from Winnipeg to Brandon. Riley's back in now, and Riley, Friday feels to be where it started, that downfall for us. It was cold, it was blizzardy, there was, like we said, no visibility, and it just kind of got worse over the weekend with temperatures, at least.
Yeah, down to our worst. Actually, one of our coldest daytime temperatures we've seen in a couple of years here in Winnipeg. You have to go back to December of 2021, I believe it is, before you get to a daytime temperature close to what we've seen today. Things are improving. But there's a catch, which I'll get into. First, I wanted to look at some of our daily stats from today. So we got to minus 28.1 in Winnipeg this afternoon, minus 32.7 early this morning. Our record low, minus 42 back in 1943. So yes, when you look at a temperature like this, it could be worse. I know it was cold out there this morning. We do have another one of these to get through where we're looking at some very cold overnight temperatures across parts of the province tonight, and some very cold wind chills. But there is a bit of a change on the way. So that deep ridge of high pressure has really kept us clear, really right across Manitoba, most of Saskatchewan, most of Ontario, Quebec, into the Maritimes. As we advance into Tuesday, though, we start to get the influence of another area of low pressure making its way down from northern Alberta. This spreads a bit of snow into southern Manitoba as we get through the day tomorrow. Clouds build in as we get into the morning hours, and then that light snow begins in Winnipeg, at least, by the time we get to about the lunch hour. So we're looking at some light snow falling through the day tomorrow. That does push off as we get into the evening hours. Still a few flurries left, though, into the western part of the province overnight as we get into early Wednesday morning, and then we start to get a bit more clearing once again as we get into the day on Wednesday and by Thursday. So a bit of a cloudier stretch coming for us as we get through the next couple of days with a bit of snow before we start to see a little bit more clearing in earnest by the time we get into the day on Thursday. In terms of accumulations, really across southern Manitoba, maybe a couple of centimeters. Locally, maybe we pick up 2 to 4 centimeters. I've got Winnipeg in that 2 centimeter range, but certainly you could maybe get up to 4 in your backyard. 5 to 6 centimeters through the Parkland region into the Riding Mountain region. So that gives you a sense of kind of where we're headed here. As for that ridge of high pressure, it sticks around. We're into that until we start to get into the day on Thursday. Then you can start to see the jet stream kind of shifting around here a little bit. Yes, maybe some cooler mornings, but we do start to moderate a bit by the time we get into the day on Thursday for sure, and we're back into some more seasonal conditions by the weekend. So waking up tomorrow morning, minus teens, I mean cold overnight temperatures, but we're starting to warm up in the west by the time we get into the morning, close to or at minus 30 for us in Winnipeg. To start the day tomorrow, minus 18 by the afternoon, thanks to some south winds gusting up to 40 through the afternoon, minus 16 for Wednesday, Brittany, and then maybe some flurries in time for the weekend, but temperatures much closer to seasonal.
All right, thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Here's a look at downtown Winnipeg as we head to break. We have much more to come. Stay with us. As we mentioned earlier, Donald Trump is back in the White House as the 47th President of the United States. His inauguration took place inside the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. And as Katie Nicholson tells us, he wasted little time to start working on his priorities.
Call it a do-over, as President-elect Donald Trump waited at the White House steps for wife Melania to join him. Back in 2017, he was heavily criticized for leaving her behind when he shook hands with the Obamas. This inauguration, also a do-over of sorts, a return to tradition. Church and tea at the White House with the outgoing administration, something Trump didn't do when he left office 4 years ago. A brutal cold snap forced organizers to move the ceremony indoors for the first time since 1985, when an icy blast forced Ronald Reagan to recite his oath inside.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
The frigid temperatures outside did nothing to chill the blazing pace of executive orders from the new administration.
I will very simply put America first.
Last time round, Trump only signed one executive order on his first day. This time, dozens expected, declaring an emergency at the U.S.-Mexico border, renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, declaring the U.S. will only recognize 2 biological sexes, and then there were these words on the Panama Canal.
And we're taking it back.
A pledge that went over well in the capital, less so in Panama, where protesters set Old Glory ablaze. Inaugurations are known for their awkward moments. There was a technical glitch.
If you know the words, help me out here.
Country star Carrie Underwood saved the day
America.
with an a cappella version of America the Beautiful. President Joe Biden was also busy on this, his last day in office, issuing last-minute pardons to Dr. Anthony Fauci, members of the January 6th committee, and 5 family members, citing fears of baseless and politically motivated investigations. As the Bidens flew away, the newly sworn-in president held court, as thousands braved the cold to celebrate Trump and the new America they hope he ushers in. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
Canada is watching as Trump begins his second term. He's been threatening tariffs on all Canadian goods on day 1 of his presidency, but as we said, so far, he's not imposed them. As Olivia Stefanovich reports, that doesn't mean the threat has gone away.
A feeling of trepidation hangs over the federal cabinet as members of the Prime Minister's most senior team gather here in Montebello, Quebec, for a retreat over the next 2 days. Their meetings entirely focused on Canada-U.S. relations and the impact that Donald Trump's new presidency might have on this country.
Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens.
In his inaugural address, Trump vowed to move ahead with tariffs and create the External Revenue Service, a new government agency to collect money from taxes on foreign countries. But Trump didn't mention Canada once in his speech, and he didn't sign an executive order to impose tariffs on Canadian goods either, buying Canadian officials more time to respond to whatever comes next.
I'm very happy to be here in Montebello today to dig in on issues facing Canadians here at this cabinet retreat.
Pas de tarif pour l'instant. Comment? Pas de tarif.
The Prime Minister was asked if the threat of tariffs is over for now. He responded, yes, for now. There's still a lot of uncertainty, and senior federal government officials say they are prepared to respond almost immediately if Trump follows through. They have a list of 10 American products that they've identified for counter tariffs, including Kentucky bourbon, orange juice, and washing machines. Canadian officials also say they are preparing 2 larger rounds of counter tariffs valued at $37 billion and $110 billion each. So the federal government taking a cautious approach as they watch every single move from this new administration carefully, wondering how long this reprieve will last. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Montebello, Quebec.
Now, retailers in Canada are watching for additional tariffs from Trump on Chinese-made goods. Aritzia, Lululemon, and Canadian Tire are among businesses that manufacture products overseas and sell them south of the border. The potential impact has some looking to shift their production out of China. CBC's Paula Duhatschek reports.
Making one pair of earrings takes a number of tiny pieces, and when trying to find those materials, one country feels almost unavoidable.
If I was trying to source things that weren't made from China, these shelves would be empty.
But as returning U.S. President Donald Trump threatens more tariffs on Chinese goods, retailers that can move production outside China are doing just that.
Knowing that there's going to be a transition in the first quarter of the year, we've already taken steps. I won't get into the percentage, but we've already taken steps to move more production out of China.
Brands like Aritzia, Lululemon, and Canadian Tire say they're in various stages of diversifying production. For some, it's a long-term plan.
What I can say right now is that the great majority of our product is manufactured outside of China.
For others, it's lately become more of a focus.
We've seen a pretty sizable shift in our, country of origin sourcing. Out of China just this year, alone.
Tariffs and political tension aren't the only factors. Companies are also concerned about textiles being made with forced labor.
You've had the normal forced labor issue and then the U.S.-China fight on top of that. And so that's why businesses are suddenly taking more extreme or extraordinary measures.
Still, trying to get away from China can be tough.
You want to have a garment, you want to have the buttons, the zippers, the threads, the inner linings, the backings, all these myriad products that go into a piece of apparel. You can't get those everywhere.
Some countries, like Japan, have actually paid companies to help them diversify.
So companies that were leaving were like, oh, if you're going to hand me money, sure, I'll take it.
He says that's not necessarily the right move for Canada, but he hopes our country gets creative to help companies that want to leave make the switch. Paula Duhatschek, CBC News, Calgary.
It's the second day of the Israel-Hamas ceasefire, and thousands of people in Gaza are making their way home through a sea of rubble. About 90% of more than 2 million residents there have been displaced during the 15-month war. Much needed humanitarian aid is flowing into the region as part of the deal. But aid workers say the scope of the destruction means major hurdles ahead. Meanwhile, the first phase of prisoners for hostages swap has been completed. Israel freed 90 Palestinian prisoners Sunday. That was in exchange for the release of 3 Israeli hostages by Hamas. 33 more hostages are expected to be freed in the coming 6 weeks in exchange for nearly 2,000 Palestinians in Israeli jails. There's new evidence the class of drugs that includes Ozempic may have health benefits that go beyond diabetes treatment and weight loss. A major new study suggests these drugs could help with dozens of conditions, ranging from Alzheimer's disease to drug addiction. CBC Health reporter Mike Crawley has the details.
You know it by brand names like Ozempic, Rybelsus, and Wegovy, a class of drugs called GLP-1s, prescribed in Canada for diabetes and weight loss, now seemingly showing promise for a host of other conditions.
We literally mapped the whole landscape of the relationship between GLP-1 and all possible health outcomes.
The largest study of its kind, published in the journal Nature Medicine, looks at more than 200,000 Americans who used GLP-1s. Compared with those who were not on these medications, it finds a reduced risk of more than 40 health conditions, including heart disease, stroke, and kidney disease. Among the strongest links, a reduction in drug and alcohol abuse.
The signal there was very, very consistent. And that is also consistent with our understanding of how GLP-1s really work.
These drugs act on parts of the brain that are involved in impulse control.
Opiate use disorder, less association, cannabis use disorders, and alcohol. This is very hopeful because it opens up new avenues of research, both in terms of treatment, but also what causes these illnesses.
The study also suggests a 12% reduction in cases of Alzheimer's disease. In this Toronto lab, researchers are exploring links between inflammation of the brain and Alzheimer's, including whether GLP-1s could help.
Type 2 diabetes is a risk factor for Alzheimer's, so a promising agent, which is revolutionizing the treatment of type 2 diabetes, would of course be considered as a logical option for the treatment of Alzheimer's disease.
The Canadian scientist whose work laid the foundation for GLP-1s is intrigued by the study.
This is fascinating new science. GLP-1 won't work for all of these conditions, but let's do the proper trials to see where there might be a benefit or not.
The study's authors and the independent experts agree far more research is needed before these drugs could be approved for treating any conditions other than diabetes and obesity. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
A British teen has pleaded guilty to murdering 3 young girls in a stabbing rampage at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in northwest England last summer. 18-year-old Axel Rudakubana also pled guilty to 10 counts of attempted murder. Additional charges included possessing the poison ricin and for having al-Qaeda manual. The 3 murdered victims were aged 6, 7, and 9. 8 other girls and 2 instructors were wounded in the attack last July in the seaside town of Southport. The stabbing sent shockwaves across the UK and led to widespread rioting. Rudakubana is set to be sentenced on Thursday. Still ahead, a tribute to and from the heart. We'll hear from a Winnipeg artist whose exhibit was inspired by the work done in the cardiac department at St. Boniface and how it helped his late father. Stay with us. A team of hospital workers helped save his father's life. Now this Winnipeg artist is hoping to honor the work they do through the work he does. It's a new heartfelt exhibition dubbed Cardially Yours. This is Charles Romero Venzin's love letter to cardiac services. CBC's Jim Agapito got a sneak peek ahead of opening night.
I'm here at St. Boniface Hospital's Beeler Art Gallery at a special art exhibition showcasing the people who provide care for the heart.
Everything's like sterilized. There's this like machine. I'm having a solo exhibition and it's called Cardially Yours. It's a love letter. It's a way for me to say thank you to Cardiac Sciences, St. Boniface Hospital for the work they did. On my father, when he was 56, he had a heart attack, and because of them, they saved his life. Once you first walk in, they're gonna see, an 8-foot by 12-foot projection of photographs that I've taken of staff, from healthcare assistants to nurses to surgeons and cleaning staff that are all responsible for keeping St. B Cardiac Sciences operational.
These are some of the objects that your children drew?
You know what? They did an incredible job with just illustrations that document the imagined play that I think that my father would have had with them if he was still alive. You see my father's cufflinks, you see a barong, and you also see a model heart. This valve here represents like the kind of valve that went into my dad that gave him another 21 years with us. There are some family photos that honor him as well from the last time we were all as a family together. No diss to my dad, but I feel like there was a bit of macho culture that was happening for my dad at the time, and maybe it was just like stigma from being born in the Philippines and thinking that every visit to the doctor costed something, or maybe it was just that, oh, I'm good, like I'm tough, like I don't need to go to the doctor kind of attitude. But I feel like a heart attack of his gravity could have maybe been prevented. All of these images that I've taken over the last 7 months, 10 visits, I've framed out patients. And this is right before anything happens.
What's going through your mind here?
I am nervous as hell, and I am really happy that my light meter worked that day. It was a challenge, and I did have to pitch the idea to Cardiac Sciences and give them a sense of, well, how are you going to communicate what we do there? And I was thinking, well, maybe we could do like a before and after. Maybe we could like have the audience read between the lines. What if I like set up a camera and just shot pre-operation? I was super nervous, but the camera's in position, and then post-procedure, capture the mess. And we have the same operating table, but you could tell someone's been operated on. And there's like a control room. There's someone that's watching like a video x-ray, like a live x-ray happen, and I was able to see a heart. And I got to see the stent get put in, and as soon as the stent got put in, the heart came alive. It was like vibrate, like pulsing, as it was like excited to be there, and I just couldn't. That was like a magical moment for me. And they do this every day, and they do like patient after patient, and it's a miracle. I really witnessed a miracle happen. Cardially Yours is also, it's a salutation. It's like a way, it's a made-up word, right? But I think of, if my dad was still around, he would also be able to say thank you to Cardiac Sciences in St. B,
So the show wraps up March 30th. Jim Agapito, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Riley's back. And Riley, I know you love your job. I love my job. I love our team. But a small part of me considered calling in cold today and just staying in bed because it was bad. It was really bad.
It was cold. It was cold. Not the coldest morning we've had so far this winter. We actually had one colder last month, but yes, it was cold.
But we're here.
We're here.
We're here, and you made it through the day. We made it through the day, so good on you.
I want you to have a look at our photo for the dog walking forecast. Maybe this will warm you up just a little bit, Brittany. Look at this.
Oh,
Maybe
Bauer's
not.
staying inside.
Bauer was a little bit perplexed as to why he could not see the vehicles driving by. This was taken on Friday. Thanks, Caleb and Mona, for sending this one in. Yeah, I would think I would feel the same way if I looked out the window and there was nothing there. Talkback at cbc.ca is where you can send your pictures. Minus 30 tomorrow morning. We're looking at winds picking up as we get through the day tomorrow. So even into the morning hours, we'll start to see a little bit of wind here in the Red River Valley. Minus 18 by the afternoon. Those south winds helping warm us up. Not quite to seasonal, but, a little warmer than we were today, for sure, with some periods of snow through the afternoon lasting into the evening. And we actually reach minus 14 by the late evening tomorrow in Winnipeg before we start to cool back down once again. So to give you a sense at where all of this cold air and how far south it stretches, here's some of our daytime highs from today. Minus 25 in Churchill, Winnipeg, Regina, minus 27, minus 28 today. Southern Ontario, Windsor, Toronto should be around minus 2 for this time of the year, at about minus 11 today. Colder temperatures tomorrow. And you can see how far south and east some of this cold air digs. Washington, minus 2 today. New York at minus 2. Places like these don't usually get this cold into January. So this cold air really digging quite a ways south. And we have a couple more days, especially into eastern parts of the country, where we'll see some cold overnight temperatures. So we are looking at cold conditions tonight for southern Manitoba once again. Minus 31 in Brandon. Overnight temperatures, then we'll start to see things rising by the time we get to the morning tomorrow, but certainly looking at some cold wind chill values once again across the province. Overnight tonight, minus 31 in Thompson and Churchill waking up to minus 33. So Flin Flon, the Paw, Grand Rapids kind of get grazed by this snow as it pushes its way south. You can see already by lunchtime how that system has helped to warm temperatures up tomorrow across northern Manitoba, up to minus 15 by the afternoon in the Paw. Into southern Manitoba, we get that snow sort of through the morning and the afternoon hours, and you can see by lunchtime, Brandon overnight around minus 30, minus 16 by the time we hit lunchtime tomorrow. And then as we get into the afternoon hours, looking at temperatures in the minus single digits once again, minus 8 in Swan River, minus 9 in Dauphin and Brandon, but still kind of lagging behind, minus 18 in Winnipeg. And I'll have your 7-day forecast coming up at the end of the show. Well, the first ever Thompson Polar Plunge happened at Paint Lake Provincial Park this weekend. Temperatures in northern Manitoba at the time, by the way, in the mid-minus 30s.
Oh, but that didn't stop some very brave people from jumping right in, including CBC's newest Thompson reporter, Sanuda Ranaway, who dove right in to his first assignment.
While a bundled-up crowd gather around a square hole in the ice, one by one, 30 brave souls jump in. Adele Guthier is with Special Olympics Manitoba.
You're in the water for less than a minute. You jump in and you're scurrying out as fast as you can. There are a number of precautions that we share with each plunger before they go in.
Like, expect to temporarily lose your breath and get to the warming tent as soon as possible. There is an RCMP officer on standby in the water. Sergeant David Michaud also removed his ice rescue suit to take the plunge.
Pretty invigorating when you jump in the water and jump out, and it's pretty crazy how cold it is, but then as soon as you dry off, I was pretty warm and ready to go again.
It was Jemiah Hurt's first time. She's born and raised in the area and doesn't mind the cold.
I woke up this morning, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think I want to do this. But on the drive here, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm excited to do this.
Those who took part had all fundraised for weeks. The region has about 35 Special Olympics athletes and 12 coaches and volunteers.
That participated alpine skiing, cross-country skiing, athletics, 5-pin bowling. Those weekly opportunities lead to competitions, which lead to provincial games, which leads to nationals, and eventually maybe even world games.
Trent Laycock and his team are ready for the next one.
It was cold, but doable. It's only minus 40, so not too bad.
In total, the group raised about $8,000 and rang in a chilly new tradition.
Over 30 people took the plunge in support of the Special Olympics today, just like myself. Sanuda Ranawake, CBC News, Paint Lake Provincial Park.
Good on you, Sanuda. Well, after the break, we take you to a night out on the town for some very good boys and girls in Paris. We'll show you why. Plus, Riley is back with our last check on the very chilly forecast. This is Manitoba. And this is Manitoba on your smart TV, because CBC News is now streaming local. Local news and weather on your connected TV or favorite device. CBC News Manitoba, streaming now. The Saskatchewan Roughriders have added a Winnipeg Grey Cup champ to their coaching staff. The Riders announced Monday that Andrew Harris has joined the club as the new running backs coach. The former running back played 15 seasons in the CFL, split between BC, Winnipeg, and Toronto. He won a Grey Cup with each team. Harris is still the CFL's all-time leading Canadian rusher, something he achieved in 2019 before retiring in 2023.
All right, I thought I'd give you a look at our freeze time, since wind chill factors a lot into our forecast, especially over the last couple of days. So in southern Manitoba, looking at wind chill values closer to -40 in Winnipeg, but certainly overnight closer to -45 in the Westman region. That's frostbite on exposed skin in 5 to 10 minutes. And in the north, we're looking at wind chills as cold as -47, for example, along the Hudson Bay coast. That would be a frostbite on exposed skin in less than 10 minutes. So another chilly night ahead tonight, looking at -31 in Winnipeg, -18 by the time we get to the afternoon hours tomorrow. Clouds depart into Wednesday, but gusty winds over the next couple of days. -14, mainly sunny sky by the time we get to the afternoon on Thursday. And then we're looking at minus single digits as we get into the weekend and early next week. Well, maybe you were like me and just kind of curled up and stayed in for the weekend. I baked some buns.
Oh, I didn't get any of those today. But in Paris, it was a night out on the town for some good boys and girls. Here's your Daily Lift. Well, dogs and their owners were invited for a special screening on Saturday of Walt Disney's 1955 animation romantic movie, Lady and the Tramp. After a bit of sniffing and barking, the dogs of all shapes and sizes settled on the red seats to watch the movie.
More dog-friendly screenings are planned, including the 1992 American movie Beethoven. The ticket price, by the way, for an adult is €8, and accompanying dogs get to come into the movie for free.
I love
it. Should have been the other way around.
Right? Look at them, just enjoying their time in. I think there's some pups that could use a good indoor movie tonight.
especially tonight.
Have a wonderful night. Stay safe. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Have a great night.